Joining us now, New York Times chief White House correspondent and MSNBC political analyst Peter Baker, and U.S. national editor for the Financial Times, Ed Luce, and former chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors and former chief economist and economic policy advisor to Vice President Biden, Jared Bernstein. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. Jared, Steve Bannon is pushing hard for the chief economist for the Heritage Foundation, who is also a contributor to Project 2025. Now that that is even being floated out in the ether, what are your thoughts?
This is a really very, very troublesome development. You're talking about stacking the deck at an institution with tremendous statistical integrity, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You talk about someone with great credibility and experience in the field. That defines Erica McIntarfer, who, by the way, used to work for me at the Council of Economic Advisors, a meticulous statistician with zero thumbs anywhere near the scales. They're clearly trying to stack the court here because the real data is impinging on their alternative reality where everything's fine. And they can shoot all the messengers they want, but they will not be successful because the truth will out. People know that affordability continues to be a challenge, that job growth continues to be a challenge. And all this is going to do is discredit the administration and the broader country in terms of the world's eyes.
So if you know McIntarfer, is it even possible to rig the data as the president has suggested? Is that something you think she would have even been capable of doing?
No, she would not have been capable of doing that. The numbers are locked by the time the commissioner gets them. She can't go in there and change 4.2 unemployment to 3.2 unemployment. It's just these folks have just a fundamental misunderstanding of how the process works. And look, we can get into the weeds all day, and we should. You're absolutely right. But what they're doing here is incredibly transparent. Again, economic reality, which is going south at a pretty decent rate, is impinging on their alternative reality where everything's fine. And it's their policy agenda, which is to blame. OK, so
dovetailing off of that point there, Ed, does President Trump's baseless claims that the job numbers are subject to political manipulation send some kind of signal to whoever comes next and make them less likely to release the credible data that's out there?
For sure, it sends that kind of signal. And he's shown that, he's prepared to fire anybody, up to and possibly including Jerome Powell, who doesn't do his bidding. It is, though, as Jared says, and Jared knows far better than I, that cooking the economic statistics just by a stroke of the pen, which appears to be what President Trump wants the next chief of the BLS to do, is something that you'll get caught red-handed doing straight away. And the markets will react. Employees at the Bureau of Labor Statistics will react. It will come out. This is not really the way of addressing the problem that Trump sees as harming him, namely much lower job growth than he was hoping for. The way to tackle that is to pursue more sound economic policies. And at the moment, he shows no signs of revisiting those.
Peter, you've written that Trump's efforts echo an authoritarian playbook, but firing McIntarfer, is that another bridge you weren't expecting him to cross?
Yeah, I think that what you've seen with President Trump in the past is a willingness to play loose with the facts, to make up numbers, to spread falsehoods, lies, conspiracy theories. But what we're seeing in the second term is a desire and intent to force the rest of government and sometimes other institutions in society to adopt his false version of reality, right? He told everybody in the first term that his crowd size was bigger than the official people said. He told everybody running for office in the first time that Obama wasn't actually born in this country, when of course he was. He told everybody after losing in 2020 that he didn't really lose. It was all massive fraud, even though everybody said that's not the case. So now what he's doing is he's making clear to agencies of the government that are typically nonpartisan, that are typically meant to be, just counting numbers and providing data, that if they provide data that he doesn't like, that in his opinion, that's the words he used, my opinion means those data are wrong, that they risk losing their jobs. And we've seen that time and time again in the last few months. Intelligence analysts who produced an assessment he didn't like about Venezuela were pressured to rewrite it. The Smithsonian Institution just last week confirmed that they actually removed Donald Trump's name from an exhibit on impeachments, not because the White House even had to tell them, but because the fear has gone out across the federal government about offending him. Now they've switched gears after being embarrassed by a Washington Post story. But this kind of thing is happening all the time. They're scrubbing data from computers about vaccines and climate change and so forth. So this is a president right now who's trying to enforce his version of the facts on a government that traditionally, provides independent data so that Republicans and Democrats alike can rely on it and make policy decisions.
Peter, your colleagues at the Times put the president's strategy when it comes to tariffs this way: pledge money or get higher tariffs. So we're seeing that the EU is saying they may not be able to make good on their promise of $600 billion in exchange for a bit of a lower tariff rate. Does this appear to be working?
Well, it is, and in some ways, right? He has, in fact, forced a number of major trading partners to go along with some sort of a tariff deal. Now, we can argue about who got the better end of those deals, but we're seeing tariffs basically go up even with those deals, right? The floor seems to be about 15%. Jared can talk about this history better than I can, but I think 15% is a floor for tariffs, across the board. And some countries will get higher than that. Is a much higher tariff rate than we've seen in nearly a century. That's a major change in the world economy. But because he threatened so much worse, because he threatened, say, 50, 100%, whatever, people took the 15% and say, well, gosh, that's not so bad. Well, we'll see. We'll see in the next few months. Does that mean that consumer goods start disappearing from the shelves? Does that mean prices start to go up for things people are used to buying? You can scrub the numbers all you want, but if people see that in their own lives, they're going to notice.
So, Ed, a final word to you. We've seen the president leverage these tariffs to push forward his geopolitical agenda. What do you think of that concept when we see it applied to allies like India, Canada? Just a word on that.
So I think, if you're Indian, India has been an ally since a bulwark, a counterbalance against China through successive administrations, including Trump's first administration. If you're India and you're hearing Trump not only threaten more than 25% tariffs, but call you a dead economy and have a one-to-one lunch with the head of the Pakistan army. I mean, presidents don't have, one-to-one lunches with the heads of foreign militaries. Then you're not seeing much geopolitics in this. The geopolitics is pretty hard to figure out. What you are seeing is Trump, with his usual extreme escalatory tactics, attempting to get India to submit in the way that, say, the European Union and Japan and the UK submitted. I suspect, though, that you're going to see India digging in its heels, even though it doesn't have the kind of leverage China has on critical minerals and rare earths. There's a lot of pride and stubbornness and a sort of feeling that this is neo-colonial, what's going on here.